Since this video is quite long, feel free to use the chapter selection directly in the description or on the play bar to skip to different parts. Enjoy watching! Ladies and gentlemen, bonjour! It's been 5 months since you last heard my smooth gigolo voice. Gotta admit, the last few months have been pretty chaotic and not really great for making videos. After the Greyhound update at the end of January and the wave of hate that followed, our little community of fans found out, with a touch of naive disillusionment, that reviving a game like Scriptum isn't something that happens overnight, but rather takes several transition phases. Once we got past the usual "they're killing the game, they don't listen to the community, it's full of bugs, the developers are sacrificing virgins under the full moon," and other funny stuff, we finally accepted that Rome wasn't built in a day, and yelling about it won't speed things up. So might as well just wait and give our feedbacks in a civilized fashion. This spark of wisdom paid off with the release of the Clean Sweep update on April 15th, which came with graphic and performances optimizations, gameplay tweaks, and changes based on player feedback. And it was after this update that the once apocalyptic outlook started to turn into more optimistic predictions. As I'm recording this, it's early June 2024, and just like Christ resurrecting Lazarus, Mercury Arts and Offworld are about to breathe new life into Squad 34. The weather's great, the Reign of Steel update is out, and you're watching BushwicksLive. What more could you ask for? Reign of Steel is the name of the latest update released on June 27th. It's the biggest update ever since the game was acquired, with a changelog of around 180 lines. That's why we won't dive into every detail here. I can spend 40 years editing this video. To give you the highlights, Offworld bought a bunch of models from the awesome Project Variety mod, lovingly made by the dedicated Internauto, adding 33 new tanks and specialized vehicles to the game, including the B1Bs! Holy shit, French swag is back! Sorry. There's also new mechanics like heavy machine guns on tank turrets, and infantry being able to ride on armored vehicles, basically bearing the most noble title of meat shields. There's a rework of suppression system, weapon handling tweaks, final graphics update on the Chapter 1 maps, revamps of some zones in Chapter 3, especially Utah Beach, new lighting effects, changes to the FOB compromise system, new class icons, reworked minimaps and interface, changes to red zones in offensive modes, endgame screens, the return of the Arnhem range with server hosting options, and a new game mode. So yeah, I'm summarizing all that Reign of Steel brings very roughly, but there is other videos that cover it well, and I don't want to steal their thunder. So, like I mentioned earlier, Mercury Arts and Offworld are close to pulling off their big goal. In just a few months, Squad 44 has gone from a beat-up wreck on 4 wheels to a shiny new sedan that's starting to catch up with her let loose. Sure, this sedan still has some flaws and occasional hiccups, but unless you're the world's biggest pessimist, you can deny that the time spent in the workshop is paying off and the game is seriously starting to look good. With Reign of Steel out and most of its issues fixed by the June 30 hotfix, Mercury Arts has now split their team in two. One part is fixing bugs, polishing, fine-tuning and perfecting the existing content, while the other is working on a next chapter. And there's a ton of work to do because they basically have to build everything from scratch. Vegetation, buildings, weapons, uniforms, vehicles, maps and design. A huge list of things to plan for to bring the Pacific to life, but we'll get back to that at the end of the video. So, the list is long and totally justifies the massive effort Mercury Arts is putting in. However, even with Offworld support, they're working on a game part-time on top of their main jobs. Yep, you heard that right. So, where we at? Well, in terms of graphical improvements, the work done so far is top-notch, giving both new players and veterans a fresh look at the battlefields they've been roaming for years. Performances have significantly improved since Greyhound, although as I speak there's still an FPS drop issue that sometimes heavily impacts gameplay. The devs are working on fixing this right now. It's no secret that the game is still pretty demanding on our processors, and even the best setups can sometimes struggle. As for gameplay and meta, it seems most of the changes they wanted to make are done. Of course, we're not safe from more changes in the coming months, so time will tell if major meta overhauls are in store, though it seems unlikely. The new frontline mode, a mix of offensive and invasion aimed at focusing action on one zone, looks promising. But whether it will dethrone offensive mode, which is to Squad 34 what random advanced secure is to its big brother squad, is still uncertain. As usual, we'll have to wait for the traditional wave of complaints that follows any new content before we get a clear view of the player base opinion. Finally, on the marketing side, even though Offworld put some effort into a new trailer and small ad campaign for the Steam Summer Sale, there hasn't been a big advertising push following the Reign of Steel update. Generally, there hasn't been one since the game was bought, with the Canadian studio preferring to save that card for the Pacific update while they shore up the game's foundations. This could suggest that Offworld doesn't expect a big influx of new players until the late 2024 and plans accordingly. So, what can we sink our teeth into while waiting for the next chapter, which rumor says will drop at the end of the year? Well, besides some potential small updates encouraging us to explore the existing maps, new challengers are ready to enter the arena. The mods. Of course, there are tons of them, and many are as interesting as they are unique, but there's a clear top 3: PSRM, Shifting Sands and Chapter Red. I would have thrown Project Variety in the mix, but now that most of its content has been bought out, well, it's in the big leagues and off this list. If some of you are still new to Squad 34's mod, the next few minutes are for you. For each of the mods coming up, you'll find the link to their Discord in the description. PSRM, or Scriptum Realism mod, changes many aspects of the game to make the gameplay much less arcade-like and much more realistic. The mod impacts a lot of game mechanics. For example, guns lose the zoom when you press shift, there is more weapon sway and recoil, the scope zoom is reduced and more. Allies are not visible on the map if they're more than 30 meters away from you, there's no squad radio channel, and the command channel can only be accessed by going to a radioman or a constructed or mobile radio and activating it. But you lose the ability to communicate via this channel as soon as you move away. Canteens are gone, and the only way to regain energy is to sit down for a few seconds to catch your breath. Names above characters are removed, making it more likely to accidentally kill a teammate if you don't pay attention to uniforms. More fortifications can be built, commanders can call in gliders and paratroopers wherever and whenever they want, there are dozens of custom factions and uniforms available, kits are almost fully customizable, and I'm sure I'm missing a lot more. For those who get the reference, PSRM is comparable to the Zeus mod on Arma 3 for its sandbox aspect and player-created scenarios. So you can't just randomly join a PSRM match like you would in a vanilla match. Due to how the mod is built, players create their events and invite whoever they want. So if you want to try it out, you'll need to connect with the various Realism communities of the game. It's worth noting that PSRM includes a lot of modded maps and all the vehicles from the old Project Variety mod. Often, these events give you the chance to face off against steel monsters like the Mouse or Sturm Tiger on unique modded maps that takes you to places like Dunkirk, Belgium or even Germany. Next up, Shifting Sands takes us back to 1941 during Operation Crusader, when the British 8th Army sought to lift the siege of Tobruk on the border between Egypt and Libya. It's a whole chapter with its own uniforms, vehicles, maps, weapons and factions, allowing us to play as Australians, New Zealanders, British, Afrika Corps and soon the Italian army with their own new set of weapons and vehicles. On Hill 209, currently their only map, we're in the midst of the Desert War as depicted in movies. In these vast arid expanses where Rommel could pop up behind any rock, you can imagine the sand getting in your mouth and eyes while your sweat mixes with the blood of a comrade obliterated by a tank at the other end of the map. You get it? Desert means not just a lack of water, but also a lack of cover, especially true on Hill 209, which offers gameplay quite different from the base game. To come out on top, you'll rely on vehicles to swiftly cover long distances in the open and reach objectives. Suppressive fire, tank support and logistical fortifications will all be assets helping you snatch victory in this particularly well-crafted mod. By the way, the Shifting Sands team recently released their roadmap and are currently working on their second map, Bardia. For now, these modders remain fairly quiet and it's hard to know what they're cooking up. One thing is for certain, even if the mod is not available yet, there's a big deserved hype around, so let's hope for the best. And finally, my sweet little sunshine Chapter Red. Most unfortunate souls who know me have been spammed at least once by me about it, so one more time won't hurt. It would be unfair to talk about World War II without mentioning the Eastern Front. The Redland Collective, which I joined almost 8 months ago, has tackled this head-on and devoted itself to creating an experience that honors this major chapter of history. Chapter Red Bloody Fall takes place towards the end of 1941, when Operation Barbarossa was losing its luster against the resilient resistance of a reorganizing Red Army at the gates of Moscow. In Chapter Red, the vast majority of the mod's assets have been custom-made over the years by people from all corners of the globe, including weapons, vehicles, uniforms, buildings, animation, vegetation and more. The final result can be seen of 2 available maps, Mednoy and Orwell Outskirts, and the Redland Collective plans to soon decide what's next after Bloody Fall. Whether you're loading a Mosin, firing a Maxim machine gun, or commanding a T-44 on the battlefield, the experience is particularly well executed. Chapter 8 Bloody Fall was eagerly anticipated by players hungry for a proper Eastern Front experience, and will officially released on June 22nd. Together with Riet, we created its trailer, which you can check out on my channel. So the weight of our riches are rodine! Over time, there will probably be other projects added to the mix, but even though the top 3 can boast of having much higher quality than usual, there are still mods and are therefore destined to live in the shadow of the game they're based on. Let's face it, even though I'm a big fan of these 3 masterpieces, I'm still really curious about what's next for Squad 34, and that's where things get interesting. Check this out. The Armored update and the Frontline mode are out, Chapter 1 maps are done, and Chapter 2 and 4 have received some attention, albeit more modestly. Clearly, the next logical step is a strong focus on Chapter 3, work that has already been partly underway with the Utah Beach rework and 40 ans and St. Mary-Église Cathedral and Church revamps, giving us a taste. As for the planned improvements for admin tools and commands, I can't really speak to that since I have no idea what's planned. Luna, the game's community manager, brought up this topic a few months ago on the official Discord, so it's likely notes were taken and some features are already in the works. There are also more traditional updates planned, like additional layers, more optimization and attention to detail. However, the second to last line mentions a rework of the training map, Arnhem Range, which has already been released even though the roadmap still defines it as a concept. Perhaps there are other features planned, or maybe the roadmap was set a while ago and hasn't been updated since, who knows. Finally, after a few months of uncertainty regarding the next factions and theater of operations, the news is now official. The Pacific Front will be Squad 34's next official chapter, and let's be honest, the hype is real. Many of us have been immersed in the series Band of Brothers, and Periscope Games, the game's former studio, understood this well. Squad 34 is now firmly in line with these inspirations, as we've also delved into the Pacific series, covering the epic journey of the 1st Marine Division throughout the war, including iconic moments like the Battle of Iwo Jima. I mentioned this battle specifically because it's been confirmed as the first playable map of the upcoming game chapter. This choice is not random. It underscores Offworld's intention to move away from Periscope Games' tradition of highlighting lesser-known battles to the general public. And now, let's hear from Chuc, an Offworld developer working on this project alongside Mercuriarts, who can probably give you a better insight than me.
We are going to be going to the Pacific by the end of the year, hopefully. We are going to be incorporating the Imperial Japanese Army and Navy as well as the United States Marine Corps, but bring to the game a whole bunch of new weapons and equipment and ways to wage war. We want to try to portray the battles in the Pacific as authentically as possible, starting off with the Battle of Iwo Jima. It will feature large, wide-open beach combat, but also combat that involves extensive tunnel network. It will definitely be a very different feeling compared to the battlefields of Europe that you've been playing so far in the game. Hopefully, we can bring weapons that have been faithful to the era, things like the flamethrower and also shotguns, hopefully. These are things that will provide further flavor to the experience. The Pacific Front, I think, has been very much the other side of the Second World War that probably doesn't occupy too much mindshare with most Western fans of like the genre. It is nevertheless, though, a very hard-fought conflict. Many nations had also participated in that part of the war as well. It would have provided for us a very interesting canvas for us to work with, have Squad 44 encompass the hopefully much wider breadth of the experience. And at the end of the day, we're all enthusiasts of trying to recreate and honor history and also the people that fought and died during that terrible conflict. To not do that, I think, will be a disservice to them. The most exciting thing that I am for the game is hopefully us being able to introduce things like, for example, 100 players. We've been trying to work on that slowly over time, trying to do things like improving the way the game is optimized and also introducing all of the technical discoveries that we've done on main modern squad and try to bring that into the Squad 44 environment. Being able to increase the player count for each server will allow for a much richer experience for everybody. It is a very big difference. An extra 10 players can make on the battlefield. That could mean 2 fully crewed tanks or another infantry section or more people running logistics to get bases up. We're really excited to try to get that to everybody. More players, that means probably more compelling bonsai charges as well.
50 players banzai charges? Okay, say no more and take my credit card. So, to sum it up, Squad 34 has a new team, solid foundations, a bustling modding scene, backing from a big name company, and will keep us entertained while we wait for a completely new installment that its main competitor haven't tapped into yet. I was gonna wrap up this video with some big optimistic statement, but I'll pass on that this time, or else people might say I'm just too biased. I'll just leave you with something that's probably already on a lot of minds today. Are we finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel? Share your opinions in the comments, we're genuinely curious to hear from you. This was BushwicksLive for Frontline News, and see you around on the battlefield. And subscribe!